Bridgend County, South Wales, is the kind of place that feels untouched by the chaos of the hustle and bustle of city life. A town where the pace of life is slow, peaceful. It's a place of tradition where families have lived in for generations and know their neighbours by name. To outsiders, it was commonplace, just another quiet, small town in the countryside. But for those who lived there, something was happening. Something that couldn't be explained. Something that no one saw coming. Between 2007 and 2009, it became the epicenter of one of the most chilling events in modern history. At first, it seemed like just a few isolated misfortunes, but soon, these deaths began to follow a disturbing pattern. Young lives, full of promise, suddenly ended, one after another, in quick succession. But these weren't accidents, nor were they natural causes. In the span of just 2 years, over 24 young people would take their own lives in Bridgend. No warnings, no explanations, and no one could understand why. It began in January 2007 with a single death. A young man found hanged in a derelict warehouse in nearby Porthcawl. Missing for 4 months, his baseball hat hung on a nail on a wall. The inquest ruled out speculation in the town concerning third-party involvement, a tragedy no doubt, but at first it seemed isolated, the kind of event that shocks the community, but is eventually understood as a terrible misfortune. Family and friends grieved, the town mourned, and life in Bridgend continued on. Or so it seemed. Just weeks later, another young life was lost, found in the same disturbing manner. This second death sent waves through the quiet town. Few could imagine what was coming next. Grief turned to discomfort. Rumours began to circulate, but this was just the beginning.
Just what is happening in a small area of South Wales remains a disturbing mystery. In little more than a year, these 6 young men have all killed themselves, found some were friends, others apparently linked through the internet.
The media took notice, headlines shouted a suicide epidemic, and Bridgend became the centre of national attention. The public wanted answers, the authorities were puzzled. The question on everyone's mind was, why? What was happening in this small town? With no clear connections between the victims, people began to speculate. Having taken place during 2007 to 2009, the internet was still in its infancy, with social media platforms like Bebo and MySpace gaining popularity among young people. This was a time when online interactions were less understood, and concerns grew that these platforms could be influencing vulnerable youths. Rumours began to spread that the suicides in Bridgend are part of an internet death cult, or a suicide pact. Fueled by the ease of communication and the perceived glamorization of suicide on these emerging digital spaces, the idea of an online death cult gripped the public's imagination. People speculate that the internet itself was to blame. Sites and forums where young people were being manipulated, encouraged to end their lives. Some even claim that there were hidden messages or signs left behind by the victims, clues that hinted at a sinister group operating in the dark corners of the web. It's a phenomenon known as suicide contagion, where repeated exposure to suicides in the media can lead others, particularly young people, to take their own lives. A modern example of this occurred in Clark County, Nevada during the COVID-19 pandemic. After schools were closed and students experienced prolonged isolation, 18 young people died by suicide. The spike in cases raised alarms about the role of social isolation and the potential for suicide contagion. And in Bridgend, this theory began to gain traction. The constant spotlight on the town, the morbid curiosity of the outside world, it seemed to be turning Bridgend's tragedy into a spectacle. Victims' faces were plastered across front pages. The circumstances of their deaths were discussed in grim detail, and as more attention poured in, so did more suicides.
The police say it's a line of inquiry they're taking seriously.
we will look at all means of communication, and we acknowledge that young people communicate by text, by mobile telephone, and of course make full use of the internet, email and such networking sites.
Though no concrete evidence of online instigation was ever found, the question lingered: was the internet really feeding the darkness in Bridgend?
Finding an absolute link between these deaths is proving very difficult indeed, but in recent years the police, the coroner and the local council have all expressed concerns about the sheer numbers of youngsters who have taken their lives, not just in Bridgend and the valleys but here in Porthcawl as well. And it's not just this recent spate of deaths, it's been going on for years, and they're all linked by the fact that they hanged themselves.
In 2010, the police asked the media to stop covering the suicides in an attempt to prevent copycat suicides. Bridgend is a former market town of around 39,000 people. However, the suicides stretched over the whole of the Bridgend County Borough, which had a population of over 130,000. But a suicide subculture continued through social media, where the dead were given online memorials on sites such as Bebo and GoneTooSoon.org. The victims even had their own funeral song. R. Kelly's The World's Greatest was played.
Their concern is that memorial sites on the internet and the media attention that follows these suicides could encourage the vulnerable to copy the deaths.
The truth of the matter is, we may never know. But what we do know is that, at the time, mental health resources were limited, and for many in the town, online platforms were their only outlet. For those already struggling, isolation can be overwhelming.
I never thought Justin would hang himself. He was totally against it. He was angry with his friends for doing it. Just never thought he'd do it at all. On the day Justin died, he wasn't acting right. He was acting strange. He went to the doctors as an emergency patient. He told the doctor that he was suicidal, that he wanted to kill himself. The doctor referred him to the hospital, but he had to wait for an appointment to come through. I ask you, what sort of hospital doesn't help a child that's come in and told him that he's tried to kill himself and he wants to kill himself? What sort of place just sends him away? He left the hospital, went to the police station, left the police station. Even the doctor in the police station though said that he shouldn't have been released because he wasn't acting right. Came home then must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning. I asked him if he was staying in, he said no. And he walked back out, and then his girlfriend come down and said that he'd gone to hang himself. I got out of bed. I phoned the police. And they were looking for him over the road in the field. And I could hear him screaming his name. And then I heard him scream his name because they found him. And I could hear him saying, cut him down. They rushed him to an ambulance. Took him to Bridgend Hospital. And basically he was pronounced dead after like 20 minutes of being there. To have to go and look at his son. He's just been cut down from a tree. It's heartbreaking. Then it was the funeral. Worst day of my life. No one should ever have to cremate their child. Never. Oh, my world fell apart. And it's even harder because I don't know why he did it. I get no answers. I've got no answers whatsoever. And I don't know why he did it.
As the years passed, the rate of suicides eventually began to slow, and the scars left on Bridgend remain. In 2014, 59 people aged under 35 committed suicide in Wales, the lowest number since 2002 and down from 92 in both 2012 and 2013, according to the Office for National Statistics figures. And the Bridgend spike leveled out. There were just 4 suicides in the county among people aged under 35 years old. For the families affected, the grief was overwhelming. The loss of so many young people in such a short span of time left the community in shock and mourning. But more than that, it left them with questions that still haven't been answered to this day. Bridgend has moved forward, but it will never forget what happened. To this day, no one can say for certain why so many young people chose to end their lives during those 2 years. Theories became abundant, but none offer real closure. Sometimes, darkness has no simple explanation. It just is. But perhaps that's the most chilling part, that something so tragic, so senseless, could happen without a reason. Was it suicide contagion? Was something darker at play? I believe the cause of this was a combination of social and economic hardship, inadequate support for mental health, and the impact of suicide contagion. The mystery of Bridgend remains unsolved, a tragedy that shook not just the town, but the entire nation. For those who lived through it, the memories of those years are haunted by loss. A town once known for its peace now carries the weight of a dark history. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please reach out. There is help, and you are not alone.